Oh yeah. Today's topics. But first, man, I just want to talk about how good it was to see Reality Wrestling take part of Comic Palooza. I was there for the 4 days. 2 or 3 out of the 4 days. I got to see a bunch of stuff, saw a bunch of people, really enjoyed my time there. The talent of Reality Wrestling really stepped up their game, and really looking forward to seeing what's going to be coming out television-wise. RealityWrestling.com, where you can see where they air the show, and please support it. It's they're really doing some great stuff. June 14th, the next TV taping will be at Clear Lake Recreation Center, and that's leading up to the July 26th iPay-per-view, first ever iPay-per-view for Reality Wrestling. So feel free to go to realityofwrestling.com to get more information. But man, that's going to be a jam-packed show. The next taping is going to be pretty crazy, I imagine. So yeah, man, I'm just happy to be a part of it. I always say that. I really enjoy my position within the company, and really enjoy helping who I can and whatnot. So really looking forward to the next shows and all future shows for them, because it's just a great time and some great people to work with, a lot of which worked at IWE with me. So also, before I really get into the crux of story time today, I hope for a speedy recovery for Daniel Bryan. Man, that's tough. Pretty much like a storybook ending at WrestleMania 30, and that whole week for him, that whole 2-week period, probably was the best time of his life. And for him to go through everything that he's gone through, man, my condolences for the loss of his father, and then his surgery. Luckily, was successful. Really glad that they didn't take the title off of him, and really kind of eager to see where they're going with it, and what they're going to do. But man, another little side note as far as the WWE. Man, Seth Rollins turning, I didn't see that coming. I don't think a whole lot of people saw it coming. So good job by them. So now on to story. Oh wait. Before that, earlier today, I actually took part in the TASW Heel Fans Radio podcast, and their first episode for their 13-step radio broadcast. I was really glad to be a part of it. Thanks, guys, for having me on the show. Got to talk to Bob Murphy, TASW's owner and promoter, and it was great to talk to him for a few minutes. And I also told people that coming in the summer, I'm going to start kind of a new chapter in the Lucha Lounge, or my YouTube videos. I'm currently at video 198, which is what I'm filming now. 199 will cover Behind the Curtain, my time with that, which was a blast, honestly, really fun times. And then 200 will talk about the year-plus title reigns, 2 of them that I had at the same time, returning or debuting for Reality Wrestling, and working with Book again, and talk about all that. And then 201 and 202 will be kind of little vanity projects. I know this is kind of all a big vanity project, but I'm going to do a couple of things that I wanted to do, because the next couple of videos won't be very clip heavy, so I'm going to make up for that with 201, 202. But probably starting in video 2 or 3 will be me having conversations with some of my friends. It'll be on YouTube for the foreseeable future, YouTube, Facebook, or wherever else it gets shared. But yeah, I have some guys and gals and people of the business that I want to talk to, and also, just share a conversation, get to know some of these people, and really looking forward to it. So, as I progress, I'll give a little more details with that. So now, story time and the topic. But let's get into everything before that and some of the stuff that surrounded it. What I felt like doing is kind of going over 2007 to 2010, and do it kind of alphabetically by promotion, with IWE being at the end, so it's not going to be truly alphabetical. But, and I'll share a few thoughts about my time at certain promotions. First and foremost, it's the first letter, A, C, W. Anarchy Championship Wrestling. Went there from September to November of 2007. I was still in a haze, man, dealing with stuff. I mean, really, you backtrack a little bit. I mean, I was dealing with losing Ashley, and then the wrestling world was shocked with everything that went on with Benoit, and honestly, it's still hard to talk about. I couldn't even fathom it. I mean, especially after what I was going through, but, a guy that was the epitome of what a professional wrestler is and was at that point. He's a guy that everyone held in such high regard, myself included. Immense respect for him as a professional wrestler. It doesn't change the fact of what he did. And really, it was tough. It was tough to want to be wrestling at that point, because here's the symbol of professional wrestling, and he's done something extremely heinous, and 3 lives are gone, and so many lives affected by it from within the industry and those that were fans of the industry, and you now are coming from a point of being asked, why would you be part of it? Or people just looking down at you even more so because you're a part of it. Just all of that at that point was just so tough. So, and I'm just in a haze over everything because of mourning and whatnot. So, back to ACW. I knew Darren. I've known Darren for a while. We're part of the Kids Clique, or the Beautiful People, way back when we were both broken in. And now he's kind of the brains behind ACW, and I had never been to ACW. I had talked to Booker prior to this and gotten his blessing to go perform wherever, and that was when I went to PCW and whatnot. Want to make sure it was cool with him, because I was his student for all intents and purposes, and performing on his shows. And he gave me his blessing, just made sure, hey, get paid what you're worth, so on and so forth. The opportunity arose to go to ACW. They did shows in Austin and San Antonio, and going back to Austin would be great. I was always an excuse to go to Austin was a worthy excuse. And getting to work with Darren would be something I hadn't done. We crossed paths here and there since our time at CTPW, but it drifted. I felt like it could be a good mix initially, but I was also in the mindset that any little bit of negativity or any little bit of drama or any little bit of something that would give me a cause to kind of stop in my tracks, I would kind of abandon it and really wouldn't look back. I mean, that was kind of my mindset. And I did a handful of matches for them. The majority of them were these multi-man, either elimination or tag team matches with a bunch of just kind of a mismatch of guys. And my style kind of worked. I mean, I really didn't change what I did. I worked the crowd like I had been. Felt pretty confident in my abilities. But those multi-man matches, they're hard because everyone's trying to get noticed and the story gets lost and you're really not sure what the story is. So it can cause some issues. But, I got a couple singles matches, got to work Jacobs Pliskin, who I enjoy, working. He's a guy you really got to be prepared to work because he's very snug. But a really good-hearted guy. And, it is what it is. I don't think I put in my best effort at that point. And it was discouraging for me. So it was kind of one of those situations of like, well, man, just leave and come back when my mind's in the right place. The same can kind of be said for CCW. Little company. I think they performed in Sour Lake. Very small place, like between Beaumont and Houston, just kind of tiny. The show was what it was. I was kind of brought in to, I think initially they wanted me to book the show. I think the owner didn't want to be the booker. He wanted someone creative, and I was like, all right, why not? I mean, this was like late 2007, around August or so. So all I can say, really, like, my first day on the job was I was told who they wanted their champion to be and who they wanted to groom, and it was a guy who was really green. I didn't know how green he was at the time. I didn't realize that he'd only worked like 1 or 2 people, and he'd only been working for a relatively short period of time, but they wanted to make him champion, and I felt like, okay, well, first day on the job, let me see what we got. I'll get in the ring with him and kind of see where it goes. I remember Kevin actually was our ref. Kelly Kevin was our ref. I lost my cool. You know, we didn't communicate. He really didn't communicate what he was going to do, and I felt like I could potentially get injured. So I kind of panicked, and in that panic, I lost my cool. Got on the mic to kind of collect myself, but it's one of my, at least at the beginning, was going to become the worst match I've probably ever been a part of. But we righted the ship for what we could, and he got it. I mean, he understood. He was a humble kid, a good kid. I had nothing disparaging to say about him. I mean, we just weren't on the same page that particular day, and things happen. Booking and performing was kind of odd. I really wasn't a fan of doing that because where do I put myself? I don't want to put myself on top. Plus, they already know who they want. I don't want to be the next in line. I want to definitely be a memorable part of the show, but my time at CCW was kind of short, 2007, 2008, but maybe 6 months or so. Just small crowds, but I tried different things, but it was, try to bring in some friends and try to give guys reasons why they were working and try to work some young guys to see where they were at. And, it was fun for what it was, but it was just kind of short-lived because, again, if I felt discouraged, I just kind of bolted. I really wasn't wanting to commit to anything, really. From there, PCW. Did a handful of things. Actually did go back. And it kind of built me up. Came back, faced Fox, which was great. He was part of the Faithful. I gotta say this, man. The Faithful was an awesome stable, in my opinion. Mace and James Johnson and Claudia and Fox and Colossus, I think, for a moment, but I think that core group, man, solid, like complete 180s for a lot of those guys. And I always had wanted to do like a dark stable, so I was kind of envious of Fox. I mean, no one more reason to be envious of Fox. I thought the build-up was alright. I thought the promo was alright. The match could have been better. I just wasn't on my game with that. Like, I knew I wasn't on my game when I came back, and I trained to get better and whatnot. But that was, I wrestled a handful of shows for them, did another Fight Win Survive, and I was part of the winning team. But I think we kind of, I got to wrestle Robert Evans. That was awesome. He's got such a great mind and really matured and developed, and such a true class act in and out of the ring. And got to wrestle Aaron Eagle, and I won a battle royal, hardcore battle royal, and then got another title shot against Aaron Eagle, and at their next big event on January 31st, 09. But not bad. I had a good time. I mean, it was little spurts here and there, but honestly, I was still on edge, but I look back now, I'm like, man, it was a good time. PWA. I was still part of PWA. But it was one of those things, like, I tagged with him. We were part of Explicit Content. We thought that had some legs. It only lasted a couple of shows. And then I wouldn't wrestle there again. So that was like summer of '07. So I didn't wrestle there again till like December '07. So there was a few months that I was not on the shows. And that was kind of just a lost match. Then I wrestled Franco, and there was supposed to be something, and he kind of changed his character. When there was supposed to be mic work, and then that changed, and I kind of felt like, okay, I'm just a role player, and that was the wrong mentality to have. I really tried to make the most of our matchup because it really felt like we could have showcased each other. Then after that, I joined Team 3D. Team 3D had been coming to PWA, but by that point they weren't coming as often. And that was like June of '08. So I defected and joined. It was like me, Alex, or Surf and Surge, and Pride. And Pride was kind of the leader of the group. And I remember Pride telling me, man, you get on the mic, you're really great on the mic. Talk for us, and we were going to be the elite, because we felt like we were the most talented guys there. But I actually turned it down. I was like, no, Chris, you should be talking because you're the leader. I probably should have taken that, but I felt like I was a role player, and my job was just to be a complimentary piece as opposed to being the main focus. Another like head scratcher. When I look back, I'm like, man, what was I thinking? But still, like a month later, I get a win against Tank. Oh, I will talk about this. Tank Bishop. This thing's on YouTube, so you can go out there and check it out. But I recall like the film study following it. I think it was like called Clash of the Champions. So, it was actually one of my first singles wins there. Actually, I think my only singles win there. But here's the thing: like Book was like, "All right, buddy, I've been working out, training. I was looking right." So he was rewarding me, giving me this match against Tank. And Tank's just this big, hunking, massive guy. He's Mike Tyson meets Taz. I mean, that's what he is. Just big powerhouse guy, doesn't know his own strength. Anyway, what I really fondly remember is the film study following. And the thing was, you never wanted to hear "freeze it" from Booker at any point. And anyone who's been a part of that knows you don't want to hear that phrase. And I recall him watching our match and liking it, liking all the aspects and really being into it, and just like telling guys, that's how you do it, that's how you get heat, and I'm the heel of the thing, Tank's looking good, and there was this, our timing was working for the most part. Like, great. And he's going through it, not stopping it, and then we get to the pinfall. And I nail him with a sexy kick, and I'm like gloating, and I do this really cocky pin, and it's a cocky pin. You watch it, cocky pin. And Buck proceeds to see that and stop the tape, and he rewinds and he plays it back, or I think he does it a couple of times, and he's like, what was that? And he pretty much rips into me. And he had ripped into me after the match initially. Like, he came to me, so I knew I was probably going to hear it. But it was a lesson. I'll never forget it. Like, I'll always remember it, and I which will actually make sense moving forward. So yeah, I mean, I continued to work for them. Let's see, I continued to work. Yeah, up until like January of '09, I continued to work for PWA. And I mean, it was like after that match with Tank, I don't think I wrestled in a hardcore match for the Iron Man title. It actually was in the main event it was like me, Nico, Jared, Tank, Pride, and Dog. And Jared won it. He was the first Iron Man champion. And then I got to wrestle the Usos. Actually, at that point, they were yin and yang. We were Team Elite. It was me and Alex Porto, who's now Alex Villarreal, at Reality Wrestling. And we were part of Team Elite, and we had these fictitious titles. We put them on the line against yin and yang. And there's actual footage on YouTube. It's like a two-parter. And actually, I enjoyed that match because those guys, man, look what they've gone on to do. But at that point, I mean, they were young, and really to help them, put them over. And I was in a good place, man. I was like, that's cool, whatever. Hey, cool. Buck was happy with the match and liked the heat and liked my part in it. So, but after that, I mean, I don't really know why I stopped going to training and whatnot. I think I just not in the right mindset. Like, you know, I say I was happy with everything, but I was always just upset. And, you know, sometimes you got to clear your head and get away. And I was like, man, I'll come back at some point. And then outside of that, I mean, there were those. There was like TASW. I did quite a bit with them. I came back around Humble Rumble, I think it was like 15, and I wrestled Nico, and that was like January of 08. And kind of got put in the title picture almost immediately, and which was cool. It was great to be back. Everybody was really happy to have me there and whatnot. So I wrestled a handful of shows with them, pretty much on top of the card. And, you know, we get into 09, and like the summer of 09, I'm still in title picture. Me and Ruthless Ryan Davidson had formed this duo. We called ourselves Sweet Meat. We did all kinds of promos. We're putting all kinds of stuff on YouTube. Eventually he became champion. I helped him in the cage. Like, I saved him from getting eliminated, and he won the TASW title. I actually did like a Lucha Lounge at TASW, like the first ever live one, and we did kind of this promo segment and whatnot, and it all led up to Rage in the Cage 2009, and arguably July 11th actually, which is a very telling date later on. But this, you know, still one of my most favorite matches that I've ever been a part of. And I remember Davey Richards actually really being into it and being really complimentary of it. And he's on it, facing Mysterious Q and Nasty Nick, another foe of mine. Both guys, I mean, we were all like kind of in the midst of a feud at that point. But that show would be very telling for other reasons, which I'll get into in a second. So yeah, I also wrestled for WOW, World of Wrestling, I believe. Yes, they're now NWA Houston. Here's the thing, like at that point, I think they're going to join NWA, or NWA Southwest is going to make a resurgence. NWA is making a resurgence. It was one of the conversations. Ken Taylor calls me up. We have a conversation. He sends me emails telling me, well, you're one of the Texas Heavyweight Champions. I'd like to kind of get you in the mix. The NWA is coming back, full force. You know, you do YouTube. Can you cut some promos? So I did. And I think the plan was that the summer of 09, I would wrestle for WOW for a little bit, and then in the summer or the spring of 09, I would start feuding with whoever had the Texas Heavyweight title, and it would, we'd kind of travel. They were like, but go to WOW because they're part of it, and they're like, you're in Houston, Ken was like, you're in Houston. So I approached them, and I honestly respect Chaz, respect Tug. Had no issues with them. I teamed up with Chaz at one point. I'm totally cool with the guy. I liked their setup. They ran monthly. The NWA thing was intriguing. It was a new place. There was new talent there. I saw no issues. So it's funny because I made my debut like about less than a month after the match with Tank at PWA. And having fresh in my mind, Booker T talking to me about the pin and how realistic it's got to be and this, that, and really the importance of it. And he was right on all fronts. I can't make any argument with him. But I remember telling Silky, "You ain't kicking out of this." In the back, I was like, and it kind of relayed the story. So when we got to the pen, man, I stacked that dude. I mean, he's on top of it. There's no way he's kicking out. So I was successful. Then I actually got to face Mysterious Q my second time there, which was a couple months later, like October 10th. We did a time limit draw. There is footage out there that has been put out there, I think. And I have the footage. But the thing was, like, that was my first time ever facing Q, and man, I could tell the guy had something, man. He was something special right at that point. Didn't really know the guy very well, but I could tell he was definitely someone who was on the rise. And then we get kind of into this, a month later, Michael Faith comes to WOW, and I think he's the Texas Heavyweight Champion at the time. And there was talk that we're going to feud. And that I'm going to get, I'm somehow going to get the upper hand on him in our match, and that's going to lead to me kind of being like, look, man, I should be in contention for the title. And that was kind of the plan. That was the plan. That was what I was told. I was, hey, man, whatever you guys want to do. And I get there, and that changes, and I was like, all right, whatever. He's a tough opponent. They're like things, plans have changed. And then after the show, I asked about future bookings, and they're like, oh, we'll get back to you. A couple months pass, and not really hearing anything. Contact Ken. He's like, well, you got to contact them. They handle their own thing. Now, mind you, he's working with these guys, but he's like, I don't really have any control. And I'm like, no, I think you do. If you tell me they're working with you, you have some say. You could say something, but whatever. Eventually, they got back to me, and apparently the issue was that I was advertising other shows, and therefore they couldn't really, in good conscience, use me because of said shows, because I'm hyping other shows. And it was like a really kind of straightforward email, and I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I think I put over Booker School at that point. And really, I put it over because that was the school I had been attending, and more importantly, I knew how impressive that school was as far as like 5 rings, full weight sets. You got Booker T there, guys from WWE show up, guys, it's kind of a no-brainer why I would say that was a better school. And it was like a Q&A I was doing. Anyway, there have been stories since. Apparently there's heat. There's still heat to this day, even though I don't really see it. I don't understand it. I don't know anything about it. I don't have any heat with anybody. I don't care. I've had conversations with Tony Brooklyn, which I'll cover another time. It is what it is. I don't really wish any ill will towards anybody. I'm really past having heat with guys for whatever reason. But, it was kind of all of this stuff. I mean, for all the good situations, there were bad situations. For all the positives, there were negatives. There were certain things about the business I kind of questioned, like the certain unsaid things, you have heat with people and they don't really tell you that you have heat with them. Like, I've always like, just tell me what the problem is. Just other things, the politics of independent wrestling, which I really didn't quite grasp why there was politics. I just couldn't see why. I didn't understand it. But again, it was what it was, and I really didn't have any, I couldn't really say what I would have done. If I have had to continue, I was kind of getting disenchanted with things. And again, I'm still kind of in this funk, in this haze, and hadn't even been 2 years yet. So around January, I get a MySpace message. This is how far back it goes. And I've talked about this, I'll kind of give the quick version. John Gonzalez contacted me. His brother was a promoter out of Victoria who I had high, immense respect for. Anyway, John contacted me about a new wrestling promotion in Houston. At this point, I'm not really affiliated with anybody per se. I'm doing my thing, but it is what it is. He had approached me, and initially he had approached me about being his champion. I'd worked for his brother. But in our conversation, which took some convincing from his brother to actually have this conversation, I said, well, who are you going to have running the shows? And he was like, I don't really have anybody yet. And I was like, well, man, I could probably get you some talent. I know some guys. I've booked shows in the past. Okay, cool. We'll make you the booker. Sweet. I mean, he wanted me to be the champ, but I was really like, man, maybe I should just be creative at this point. Really wanted to book. CCW had kind of given me an appetizer, but there was just stuff. Like, I really was like, man, I really want a good crew, so on and so forth. And John's pitch was great. They had a building. Awesome. That meant like we didn't have to go places, like we could be centralized and we could run whenever we wanted to run. It was like we could run as often as we want to run. It was like awesome. Obviously we test the waters, so on and so forth. And they're talking about advertising that they were going to do. And they wanted to do birthday parties that were wrestling themed. And I thought, man, that could work. And the way they pitched it, the amount of money that they were going to do, and him and his partner at the time, it painted this kind of pretty picture. So we met at the building. The building they had just moved in, but he painted this wonderful picture of what they were going to do. And I gotta admit, man, it sounded sweet. Because it was a building that was centralized, good parking, plenty of parking, a big wide open space where we could run shows and we could pack it pretty well. And the idea of birthday parties was, again, intriguing. Like I could see it. And yeah. And he kind of had his stuff together as far as like getting the word out. We had ring girl auditions. He just wanted girls on the show, I guess, a reason to talk to women and email them and whatnot. And I remember having to really lead that and be very professional and like not, I wore a suit and just tried to be as professional as I could because I know it could have been nerve-wracking. I mean, you get women involved in the wrestling business, they really don't know it. The auditions were cool because I wanted to see who knew wrestling and whatnot. But I'd asked John, well, what do you have in mind for them? And he didn't really have anything. I think he wanted, kind of a lucha libre version or like the Nitro girls. And it was like, man, you're going to have to find like a real dance team or like choreographer and whatnot. I'm like, but what you're getting, in these auditions are girls who model. So let's make them spokeswomen. Like we'll make them ring announcers. That was my initial thought. Like, yeah, we get 6 or 7, have maybe a main one kind of host the show or co-host the show. Maybe I can host it. I thought I'd be the host. That way I'd be around and there'd be a reason for me to be there outside of booking it. And then I could help drive the show, help move it along. I also remember meeting Jay, Justin. He was going to be brought in to do web design for them, and I met him. And he actually had seen me at TASW at one point, and we hit it off pretty quickly. And I asked him about videotaping, and he talked about how they videotape their production company, and they've done this, that, and the other. And I was like, man, would you film the shows? And talked to John, hey, can we get them to film the shows? And he was like, yeah, sure. And it was like guaranteed money for the talent. It was a good wage for these guys. I mean, you couldn't argue with it. Talked to Justin about video production and what potentially they could do on like 3 cameras. I was like, man, this would be like PCW all over again. But I got to get the right crew. My thought initially was and plan was really just building a debut show with talent that was somewhat familiar in the area, but working smart with the money that we would have budgeted out for the show. And pay guys that I felt like worked well. And I knew a lot of the guys that worked at PWA were quality guys, and there were other guys that had worked at PWA and had worked with me at PCW, and there were guys in Austin. Like, I knew that there were plenty of guys that I could draw from. And I thought, well, one thing I don't see, and part of it too was like there were a lot of things I didn't see. No one really used YouTube. Oh, well, man, that's a shame. Why don't you? I mean, I use it. Why don't other people use it? I had, social media. At that point, MySpace. Like, no one advertised their shows at that point. The companies that did, like the ROHs and to an extent ACW, I looked at those models. Like, you've got to reach people, and really the internet and YouTube and all this stuff, I mean, it's on the horizon. Like, I never understood why guys never posted the flyers of the shows on their profile pages. I mean, so I had to find someone who would do flyers, and I did find someone who would do them, and did a great job. Paul Griffin, he did a great job with that stuff. So I tell talent, like, hype the shows, like, you're kind of out of play, man. Social media, we'll go on YouTube. We won't show actual wrestling footage. We'll do video, like promos, like video wires, but different. Hype everyone who's a part of it. So this thing's on YouTube, but it's such a word. I mean, it's like my first real attempt at like clipping everything together. And the great thing about it was I was in the midst of meetings with everybody else, and what I would tell the talent is take the camera, talk about February 21st, 2009, hype yourself. Get the show over, get yourself over. And I didn't care about order. I was like, I'm going to chop it all up and we're going to release it. All to prepare. Like, our flyers were, I had Gustavo and VIP had been at PWA and he was gone from there. And now Gustavo was, pretty much the mainstay of PWA, and they had a history, and I thought, man, that will sell tickets. It's not something that hadn't been seen, but at the same time, it would draw interest in just the collection of people that I would be using on the show.
Yeah, what is going on? It is me, Locke, and I'm here to show you a little bit of robot. I will teach you, all right? Hold on a second. It is all right. I'll be right back.
My name is Rubio, and I am from Imperial Entertainment Worldwide. And on February 21st, the IWE is going to witness my first client.
All right. So the first thing about the robot is you got to break it down like this, and you lock it, and you pop it. Lock it, pop it. Whoa, what? Hold on.
The biggest superstar that's ever happened to wrestling in the past decade. He is the future presentation. He is Adrian Sensation.
Looking good now. Okay. Now you can use this with a big jewelry, all right? You just got to. What? No, hold on a second.
Febrero 21, en la IWE, voy a tener una lucha con VIP. Yo he luchado bastantes veces con VIP y estoy cansado de que él siempre me gana. Hemos tenido bastantes batallas, pero no ha ganado la guerra. Y yo sé que le puedo ganar. Y febrero 21 le voy a enseñar. Le voy a enseñar que yo no juego. Te voy a terminar. te voy a terminar.
Alright, so whenever you have the jewelry on, you have to break it down just like you did before. You do the pop, you do the lock, and then you can even break it down on the floor. Hold on. Now that I got all B-boyed out, okay, here we go. You ready? Are you ready for this? Okay. Oh, wait a second, my feet, hold on.
But he's going to be the first one, my first client, okay? But all you wannabes, y'all better start sending me requests for representation because I am not going to represent you. I will choose who I represent. And on February 21st, you're going to see Adrian Sensation in action. Cut!
Alright, so, as you're doing this, right? But what are you doing out here? I'm just teaching some breakdancing.
No,
what are you talking about?
They paid me to come in here to teach everybody breakdancing.
Look, I am always the one that does the breakdancing.
You don't do it very good, though.
What are you talking about? I am the champion of the world in breakdancing.
No, okay, you want to know about champions?
Well, February 21st, when we come out here, we'll be breakdancing hard, right, bro? That is right. We're going to breakdance on your back, on your bum, and on your head, buddy.
That's right, and when we say breakdance, we mean breakdance.
Another day, another dollar. Man, get a good look, cameraman. See what's around here? The breeding ground for another organization in Texas, huh? I'll tell you what, if I had a nickel for every single time I went into another organization and made it what it is today, I'd be a freaking millionaire. See, Texas is no joke. I mean, come on, it's the best of the best is here. And of course, when you talk about the best of the best, you're talking about me, the double RD, Ruthless Ryan Davidson. You want this to be the breeding ground of all your champions? Of all the guys that's going to carry it along through the legacy of everything else? Well, let me tell you something. I'm the cornerstone of what a champion is. I am the role model, the measuring stick of what it takes to be the best in professional wrestling. So I tell you what, the talk of the town is not going to be about Barack Obama's stimulus plan. It's not going to be talking about some rinky-dink sports franchise, how many games they win or lose. The talk of the town, February 21st, Ryan Davidson makes his mark in IWE. Be there, because if you're not, you're missing out.
So the debut show, we did pre and post show videos, which would go on YouTube. We introduced the Independent Wrestling Championship Series, the IWCS, my thought, and having fans vote and vote on a variety of things, and your record would go into play. And I thought, man, a ranking system, not a lot of people do that, like a true ranking system where you get the fans involved, with like the fan vote is certain percentage, as well as the board or the championship committee, all building up to this crowning of a champion idea, which was a few shows away. I also wanted to do like a getting to know series with the girls. We had these girls, they were being paid pretty well, so I used them as ring announcers. And then what I was going to do, which never really came about, I did a couple of interviews with them, was like a getting to know series, and eventually put all that footage and extra stuff and put it, make it a DVD of its own. That never happened because a couple of shows later, which which we'll get into in a second. I was pretty happy with it, but the thing was that I should have known stuff was already kind of going to be rough. The building, it took time, it took longer. We met a month prior. I'd asked, would you guys be ready by this date? Because once we make this date, we're not canceling. And they assured me that they would be. And it was still like, they got it together, but like the night before, they were still rushing. Like as the talent was getting there the next day, they were still barely made it. After that, we had a couple of shows, and they were decent. People showed up, and I mean, people stayed, and we had returning people, but not nearly enough. And on the flip side of that, there were no birthday parties coming in, so they weren't really generating money the way they thought they were. So come April of 2009, late March, we were told we were losing the bankroll. The guys that were promising us this money, and at that point we could have walked away from it. And that was probably the first, like, there's your out, get out of there. But no, this was a good thing, and I thought, well, I'll leave it to the talent. We no longer have a guarantee. Now we need to work for the door. We need to advertise as much as humanly possible so that we can, generate money. Because now we're truly working for that. But I held it to a vote. I talked to production, and in actuality, I remember, like, after the first show, us, John, and at this point Ray were telling me, well, we don't need production. And I'm like, what do you mean we don't need production? You guarantee me so much for the show. How I use that money is up to me. I can pay talent whatever I want, and I can, pay who I want. And what harm does it do? We're gonna release stuff on YouTube. And they're like, we don't care about YouTube. And I'm like, well, it's not up to you. It's me. If you don't like it, well, I don't know what you want to do. And they, okay, fine. If you want to do it, and if the talent agrees to it. So once we lost the bankroll, now it's like, well, okay, if you guys want to run a show, that's fine. We have the building until this point. Although they were hemorrhaging money completely, but they were like, no, we'll get concessions, you get the door. Awesome. And we got the door. It made it tough, but really without everyone voting for it, we never would have kept running. And really, I got to hand it to the guys that felt like there was something there, and I think they saw the freedom. At the same time, there was a place they could relax, and at the same time, we're doing filming. We're putting stuff out on YouTube. You can see the footage. We're handing them footage, or they're able to get the footage because we're filming everything because we're leading up to the DVD taping. So the very first DVD taping, the crowning, and we lost most of the women. After the money went, the women went, which rightfully so. Some were kind of invested, some had fun with it, but for the most part they were done. And the reality is all of this comes off of us working during WrestleMania weekend. We actually did a early morning Saturday show, that weekend. We also got to kind of work hand in hand with Ring of Honor. They came in. Darius actually had done a great job getting them an autograph signing at Griff's. Got to meet a lot of that talent, got to be backstage at a few of their tapings, got to see a lot of those guys. But more importantly, I got to circle around because I wanted to see the layout and how they did stuff in such a big building at George R. Brown. And they just kind of how they worked their cameras and where their booker was and so on and so forth. And I actually ran into a bunch of YouTube people like Truth Slayer, got to meet him in person, and I had met RVD, Tito for Life, and a few others, and it was kind of cool, like Crazy Mike and a few other guys, and we actually missed matches because we were having this really in-depth conversation. But it was great to see those guys, and never met those guys, and really wish I was part of the WrestleMania festivities sometime so that I could, run into them more. So after all that, we had our first DVD taping, and they had their first birthday party. And they didn't plan for the birthday party, so I get a call like at 11 a.m. Hey, I know the DVD taping's tonight, but can you get me a couple of guys so we can do a birthday party? And I was like, what? And I get there, and they don't have girls, and they don't have this, and they don't have that. It was really kind of... But me and a couple of guys, I think, you know, Robbie and Gustavo, and I think Kevin, and, you know, kind of fuzzy on that, but... few guys showed up and helped out with that show, and I'm really appreciative of that. I mean, you know, they got a little payday out of it, a little extra payday out of it. Oh yeah, also, let me backtrack a little bit. Justin, at the very first IWE show, he brought like 50 people. Like, he came with an army of staff. It was they all had the shirts, and they all had their passes and whatnot. They all looked like part of that group, and it was wow. It was just something to behold. Anyway, that was awesome. But back to the DVD taping. The night before, we did interviews with all the guys as a DVD extra. Here's the first DVD. Yeah. And what an awesome DVD it was. I mean, we did have like we did have one change. Chaotix canceled. He had been double booked, I think, so he actually couldn't make it. But I mean, we had Rockstar Robbie versus VIP. We had Crusader Locke versus Cash versus Mysterious Q. We had your feature presentation, Adrian Sensation versus Gustavo Mendoza. We had Ruthless Ryan Davidson versus Crusader Poppin'. And then the winners of that would go on, roughly kind of the way it worked out, the winners would go on to, because we now had a tournament to crown a champion, and we had the tournament semifinals, and then the championship match was a four-way. It was Ruthless Ryan Davidson, Adrian Sensation, Mysterious Q, and VIP, and Ruthless Ryan went over. And mind you, Ruthless Ryan, like, it started his IWE career with like 2 straight losses, even though he's like the most, that promo package, he had knocked it out of the park, and it was like, wow. And really, like, you know, some last minute changes. I talked to certain talent, like, ultimately, how did we want to end that DVD, what talent we wanted there and whatnot, and it was awesome. We did post alternate commentary, which is on that DVD. I think it's me, Adrian Jones, and Justin Smith. Brian Archer does the sound, helps us out immensely, and kudos to all of them. But it was fun. We did like alternate commentary. We had commentary. Garris was the commentator, but then you had this other option on the DVD to actually hear the alternate commentary. And I always love the alternate commentary. You know, probably part of my vanity, but yeah, man, the story, the build-up prior to it, the little 30-minute thing, roughly 30-minute pre-thing, was awesome. You know, just interviews and whatnot, and everybody was part of this, man. It felt like a team. Following that show, we had a couple of other shows, like latter part of May and June. I actually had Psycho Simpson there, which was awesome. He faced Mysterious Q. Then we had to go to a new building, and our next show was July 4th. We had another meeting. Now, by this point, again, I get the, why do we have production? And I was like, again, we're working for the door, so what I do with the money, what difference does it make? You're giving me the same amount regardless. This guy's willing to work with me. We're putting out DVDs. They didn't care about the DVDs. They didn't care about any merchandise that we had. They just were like, you know, it was just kind of this thing, you know. July 4th, we have this pretty solid show. I mean, the end result was American Eagle versus Ruthless Ryan Davidson in a non-title, but yet a warm-up match for our July 18th DVD taping, which was going to be Welcome to the Evolution, which really was going to be our coming out party. Hey, we had this first DVD, but this next one was going to knock that out, completely blow that away, and we were getting such buzz. So, July 18th. Well, let me backtrack. So, again, had a contract signing for the IWE Championship between VIP and Ruthless Ryan Davidson. We had built up towards our next DVD taping. We're going to blow it out the water, all the buzz and whatnot. And then a funny thing happened. July 11th, that DVD taping at TASW, another Dojo Productions production, I get told that guys were kind of given this really odd choice, you know, like kind of a him or us kind of deal. Not for me. Some other promotion had kind of done something that those at PWA didn't appreciate, and so a decision was made, and unfortunately I'd been kind of lumped in this, although I'd never really tried to step on anybody's toes anywhere. I was really very welcoming of any promotion, and I was really welcoming of guys working for whoever they wanted to work for, and that wasn't my deal. Really never had a conversation about it, tried to, never worked out. Guys had a decision to make, they made the decision that they made. And at the time, I'll be honest, it was like 6-7 days prior to this DVD taping and all this buildup, and I lost and I've talked about it, but I mean, I lost, like three guys off of the first DVD, and not just these 3 guys, like some very good other parts. Yeah, tough. Having a conversation with Ryan, he's my champ. He's like, man, I'll come and hand you the title. I was like, no, let's not do that. We're not going there. We'll just figure out a way. I had guys tell me, no, we shouldn't do a show. And I remember like the night prior, prior to the second DVD tape, I'm like, what am I going to do, man? We're at this new building. We're trying to make do with it. We're trying to make the most of it. We're at Armadillo Marketplace, and it's such a beast of a place to run in, and man, what are we going to do in this other meeting? And more like, why are we having production? And I'm like, we're making DVDs, we're putting out merch, that's hopefully going to help. We're creating a buzz. I mean, it doesn't happen overnight, and really your birthday party plan really didn't happen either, so what's the problem? But anyway, all that aside, I mean, the show went on, DVD taping, I talk at length and very seriously about my opinions at the time for that. I was very upset, very angry. I mean, mainly because I didn't get to sit down and have the conversation and kind of justify why I had those guys on the roster and why I was utilizing those guys, and at the same time why I was, I felt like I was being very, very respectful of what other companies were doing. I wasn't trying to do anything that was similar. I mean, unless there was some injury in one show, we'll pay homage. If you're babyface on one show and you're throughout, we're not going to change it, It was what it was, and at the end of the day, yeah, I could give these guys footage. Footage could be made available to them. Yes, we were releasing DVDs, but this was the second DVD, but we were only running once or twice a month. I mean, we had merch. We had these things, so there was all that, but kind of at the end of the day, the one thing I couldn't guarantee was pay, and I couldn't go to another, if that was brought up, it was like, man, I can't, the payoff for them is the exposure. Payoff for them is the hope that we can generate interest and build a brand, and I thought we were on the cusp of it, but really the show had to go on, and I look at it now and I understand again, if we were drawing these standing room only houses and guys were getting paid hand over fist, and every show was a DVD taping and all these things, and we were highly successful financially, then yeah, I'd have a lot more stability to stand on, but that was not the case. So I had to really, kind of get it out of my head. I was upset. I was very upset. But at the same time, I had to move forward. And move forward I did, with a whole new group. So coming out of that, now I had VIP and Your Feature Presentation, Adrian Sensation. They main evented the show, which should have been Ruthless Ryan and VIP, but it was still a very good match, and I really got to hand all the guys that came and performed for me kind of even almost at the last minute. Like Q was injured and Psycho Simpson no-showed, and there was like a couple of other things, you know, that just added to my complete, like, oh my God, such a stressful time. And it was stressful for me, and I let it wear on me. I did. So yeah, after that, John and Ray decided to do LMI, run another show in the Armadillo Flea Market. Totally. I mean, it's their building. I mean, it's their space, their building, their ring. They can do whatever they want. They wanted a lucha show. They'd asked me about bringing in luchadors, and I talked about it. I didn't know very many in the city, which was one thing. I didn't have the money really to pay these guys. A lot of the guys that were working for me, again, were working for me because they wanted to work there and because they understood. And I wanted luchadors, but that was coming. That was the thought. Like in a year, I mean, I hate to say it, man, like, let's get some some stability, some kind of foundation, then we can move forward. But they wanted to do LMI. Whatever. They ended up doing it. It was a lucha show. Complete opposite of what we did, and but they drew better. That was the odd thing. They drew better because they were a lucha show, and I should have seen it. Should have done more with it. People asked me about why I didn't bring girls on the show. Again, it was a money issue. It was, I only have so much. I'm going to use the guys that I'm familiar with, the guys that are comfortable. I get constantly asked about guys wanting to be on the show, especially after the mass exodus, and I'd still be like, well, man, we get paid by the door. There's no guarantee. I can't even tell you I can pay you X amount. I can't tell you anything like that. The truth is, we work for the door. So there are no guarantees, and I really didn't want to approach people and have them come in for a non-guarantee. At least not then. Let me build some kind of fan base, and then I can start bringing people in. Yeah, so some things after that. We did Reliance Center. That was pretty solid, but kind of a cluster. I mean, it was lucha show, American, lucha match, American match, lucha match, American match. We filmed all that, for extra footage and whatnot. And then building up to our next DVD taping, we did, which would be in October 2009, we did a battle royal. And some will tell me that's a great battle royal. I really liked it. I mean, it was mapped out. I told you guys what I was hoping to see coming out of that. But man, it was good. It was solid. It was solid build up, and it built up to a #1 contender, and the finish was solid and whatnot. And it all led to Give Me Some More, which God, I wish this was a shirt, but I mean, it's hard. It's hard, but if you've seen it, it's like our rendition of The Last Supper. We filmed something leading up to it, another alternate commentary. I think it was me, M. Dirty, and Justin Smith again. Really enjoy it. I mean, that one was actually, I'm on this one. My only match in IWE at the time that I booked, and it was against the Scottish Nightmare, Wallace Gordon. That footage, here you go. had Team XL, Wrecking Crew for the TCW tag team titles. I didn't care, you know, hey, we didn't have a tag team division. The tag team wanted to defend their title. I was cool with that. Your feature presentation, a sensation against American Eagle. You had Brett Anthony versus Mysterious Q, and VIP, the champion, versus Nasty Nick Daniels. It was awesome. Awesome. I really enjoyed it, especially the alternate commentary, but the action was great too. So, at that point, you know, we had a couple of months. And come November, I got told that all the guys that had left IWE because of, you know, that earlier decision had decided, had been given the green light to go ahead and come back. And I mean, they, you know, probably had that conversation and told, you know, said, hey man, it's a good place, quality place, you know, Steve's doing good stuff there. Maybe they showed him some footage, I don't know. But I got the, hey man, can we come back kind of deal. And I was like, yeah man. I mean, at that point, it was like, man, I just want my crew back. And I had this new crew and like, wow, it's even a bigger crew. Let's do something. So we had a lot of returning names with it. And, you know, kind of like the backs, like IWE 0 Hour was originally predicted to be IWE's final show. But thanks to the fans, we will continue the evolution. Witness IWE's first tag team gauntlet match featuring the Wrecking Crew, Nick Daniels and Brett Anthony, and the Crusaders for a trophy, tag team trophy. And then see the return of former IWE superstars back from exile, Ruthless Ryan Davidson, Robbie, Rockstar Robbie, Kelly Kevin, Gustavo Mendoza. Kelly Kevin Gustavo Mendoza actually wrestled in that one. American Eagle, Rockstar Robbie actually teamed up in the tag team gauntlet, which Nick Daniels and Brett Anthony almost won, but the Crusaders ended up winning. And then it was a four-way. It was a VIP, the champ, against Mysterious Q, their one contender, against your feature presentation, A Sensation, against former champion, Ruthless Ryan Davidson. It was great. We thought it might potentially be the last show. And it was a good show all the way around. And a true pleasure to have all those guys back. Now, and then after that, me and Jay kind of sat down. You know, he's working on an Amazon deal to sell the DVDs, to sell these DVDs on Amazon. I believe they're still on Amazon.com, I think. After our first show in January, which was Wrestling Odyssey, we did something with Mysterious Q because now he's the champ. He become the champ at 0 Hour. I wanted to do kind of 2001, like kind of I wanted to do something like that, kind of vintage. Didn't work out the way I'd hoped, but still, and we called it a Wrestling Odyssey. And Q was aligned with A Sensation. There was the Sensational Mystery Tour. Q's the champ. A Sensation's his buddy, but he prefers Top Billing. You got M Dirty. Kelly Kevin would be back. The Crusaders were the tag team trophy winners. Man. So shortly after that show, Justin secures the deal with Amazon. Doja Productions is able to sell the IWE DVDs on Amazon.com. And that was a great day. It was like, man, money hopefully will come in. We can tell people about it and we can make them official. Now we're not selling them out of a box at the shows. Now we can sell them online. We can reach a whole audience, a whole different audience. Hopefully all those people that have seen the YouTube videos, maybe they'll buy them. Who knows? We weren't really sure. I mean, DVDs could sell, hopefully. I mean, it was just like the next step. So we get that deal, and like 2 days later, we get IWE's Quest for the Golden Scepter, which would be my last IWE show. And it was like the 1 year anniversary. At this point, every show was going to be a DVD taping, and we would film extra stuff to kind of beef it up, or we'd do a 2 shows in one kind of deal. And we were kind of working out some ideas. I remember initially Justin didn't really, because John and Ray had never asked for anything, and in fact, anytime we brought up the DVDs and the potential and Amazon and all that, we were always kind of met with this, we don't care. They didn't care about them. Ray wanted the footage. He wanted to see what we had filmed. So we made a deal with that, and Jay brought him everything. Our entire library. Here you go, buddy. It's yours. I mean, if you really want it, it's yours, but, again, weren't really paying for it. We worked for the door. There was never any, and they really didn't want it. 6 days after our last show, which would become my last show, and our next DVD taping, I actually remember having a meeting with Jay and a few others. And at that point, we'd actually discussed cutting John and Ray into the DVD deal. Like, as far as they would get a couple bucks per DVD, depending on how much we made. Like, we would get them half, I think was the agreed upon thing. Like, well, even though Jay had done all the work, it's all his equipment. At the same time, we're like, no, they're giving us the building, the ring, it's only fair. And that's what we had agreed to. And I knew that I would, I was like, well, we'll give John the good news the following week. So that was Friday, was when we came up with this decision. We probably should have let John know then, but the next Saturday, I remember we were going to another show. We're on a road show for a different company. John and Ray give me a call, and John basically tells me that my services will no longer be needed. They want to go in a different direction. And I was like, what? Oh man. What? Man, crazy. I was completely caught off guard. Completely. They wanted to go in a different direction. They didn't like having Justin around. LMI did better business, even though a lot of people tell me there was a lot of nonsense on that show. Nothing ever made sense. The fans didn't seem to enjoy the show, yet they kept coming back. And IWE, for all its, the lights and the smoke and the projectors and the 3 cameras and the talent level, we just really didn't draw as well as they did. Take that with the fact that anytime they would try to tell me, well, why don't you do this? And I would be like, no, this is what I'm going to do. Should have been more open about it. Should have been more open to ideas. But the reality was that I always felt like John and Ray never delivered what they promised. They were the promoters, yet they rarely advertised. When we moved to the Armadillo, they didn't advertise. They rarely advertised. A lot of promises that they kept. A lot of promises that they made, they didn't keep. And, but at the same time, they could run LMI and didn't have any stress. And with me, they had a lot of stress because I was not really with what they wanted to do. I was completely blown away by it. Angry. I remember posting something about like RIP IWE because I was upset. But then when Talon approached me about doing the show, I said, man, no, y'all do the show. This is not, this is a decision they made. If you guys want to work for them, don't look at me. I don't have any problem with it. You guys do what you need to do. Thanked everyone for their help, and I said, me and Justin will probably sit back. We'll talk. Maybe we'll work on another project down the line. Now, following that, and before that, I got brought in with the last company I'll talk about, and it'll be brief, is XWO, because that was around that time. At first, I got brought in in September 2009, and I think it was Devin Storm's debut as Booker, and it would be his first and last show. They brought me in to work Diamond Dave, no problem with that. XWO had such potential as far as the building they ran in. They ran at the Sam Houston State University, I believe, and they ran in their gym, their gymnasium, where they had, I mean, big building, big arena, had a lot of potential. I just remember the wife of the promoter was also on the show and also eventually became one of my stablemates when I would work for XWO regularly. I remember she kind of rubbed me the wrong way. She didn't really do it to me. She'd ask guys if they felt like they deserved their pay, which I felt was really unprofessional. It's one thing to critique someone, but there's certain ways to critique them. I really felt like they handled their stuff unprofessionally, and because of that, Devon Storm left. They were cool with me. They never gave me any kind of grief. My match with Diamond Dave was pretty solid, and then they wanted to bring me into book. I think the initial thought was bring me into book so that they could get on IWE, which was not necessarily going to happen. Again, the money situation was one thing, and for two, I mean, it was just, I had certain guys, and if I thought, you had to fit a certain role, and if you didn't fit a role, or I had someone already in that role, it was like, well, and I had other guys. There were other guys that were approaching me, and again, money issue. But anyway, they wanted me to be brought into book, and I think I booked 1 or 2 shows. I became champion, worked with Team Excel, which was awesome. I think we were like High Rollers Incorporated. We did actually have the wife of the promoter actually is one of our stablemates, like I mentioned. And then I became a consultant after I won the title. I was like, I don't want to be the champion and booking the show. I just don't want to do that. I'll consult. And really a lot of it too was kind of a situation of, I just didn't feel good booking and being the champion. On top of that, I didn't like, it's one thing to tell me to book and say, we'll let you do whatever you want, and then come back and tell me, oh, well, we have these ideas. It's like, well, you should tell me your ideas. And it was all these, and it wasn't just 2 ideas. It was like 4 or 5 other people trying to tell me where they wanted to go with the show, and everyone had a say apparently within the family of the money. So it was what it was. Did the honors for Slim Sexy. Really had no problem with that. It was my last show. I remember they wanted to work with ACW, and ironically, I lose the XWO title, and they end up putting Slim Sexy on ACW shows. So I could have probably gone in through ACW if I wanted to politic. I didn't want to, because at IWE we didn't politic, so what was the point of politicking there? Got to work with Darren a little bit, but it was only in that kind of working together, and was what it was. So that's it. I mean, there's those 2 last shows of IWE I have not seen in a while. I mean, I remember seeing them, but yeah. So I have questions before we leave. A couple of questions real quick. From Larry Wade the Third from Facebook. He had a couple. What is the first step you take to start booking? Like Uncut, did they come to you or you talk to them? How hard is it to get your foot in the door, especially not being a wrestler? The first step, I mean, if you like, I think when I was in Austin, I approached them about booking because they didn't really have anyone that was doing that, and I just was like, man, let me try it. Why not? And they agreed because it was like, well, that's one less thing we have to worry about. Uncut, I got approached, and without a whole lot of experience. I mean, I'd only done a couple of shows in Austin, but I think it's because I was such a respected member of Full Throttle's locker room, and a lot of guys were pretty respectful towards me. A lot of guys looked up to me at that point. I was in a high position at PCW. It probably, I guess, made sense to some degree. As far as not being a wrestler, I think it really just kind of depends. You'd have to ask someone who's a non-wrestler. Like Richard Hill would be a guy to talk to, only because he's never been a wrestler per se, but he has booked shows. I think sometimes it really just depends on the promoter. If they want someone whose just sole job is to be creative, And sometimes maybe having someone who's a non-wrestler works in to some advantage because they're not a wrestler and they won't want to put themselves front and center. I mean, that is the biggest, one of the hardest things, one of the hardest temptations to fight is that temptation of being, well, I got the pin, so I can pin myself in to be the top guy. And it really takes someone who kind of goes, no, that doesn't work, unless you feel like it does. It never has worked for me. I mean, if I'm booking, I'm usually just special attraction, or the host or something like that. I don't ever want to be, like in XWO's case, don't want to be the champ and the booker. I don't want to do that. I don't even want to book her and be wrestling for the most part, unless it's a special type of deal. CCW is kind of like the special deal. Always on near the top, but not the top guy. Secondly, worst guy you've ever been in the ring with and the worst match you've had. Well, honestly, that was probably that debut match at CCW against Ganarelli. I hate to put his name out there. But it really wasn't his bad. He was green. He really didn't know any better. And man, honestly, I can't, which is a bad match because lack of communication. And that communication's paramount in any successful match. Chemistry also helps, but being on the same page, kind of knowing your role, his role, ref's role, all that. Everyone's got to know their part. So, thanks, Larry, for the questions. I'm always willing to answer questions. Never have a problem. Anyway, next. Well, really, in conclusion, as I watch the last bit of footage I have from IWE, which is the trailer of 0 Hour. Awesome trailer. Awesome trailer. I'm reminded of how awesome that day was. I mean, the crew was back. That entire crew, that original crew was back. I have always wanted like the Wu-Tang Clan of wrestling. Just this kind of myriad of different guys and different personalities all working towards a common goal. The Wu-Tang wrestling. And in most ways, I feel like that was the case with IWE. All the guys that were on the front of here, from VIP to Rockstar Robbie to A Sensation to Mysterious Q to Gustavo Mendoza to Ruthless Ryan Davidson to the Crusaders to Cash, all those guys, to Rubio, Kelly Kevin, Rubio, those guys, Justin Smith, all the Dojo production guys. That was my Wu-Tang Clan. And for a lot of reasons. I mean, it was a small group. We were all on the same page. We all wanted the same thing. All of it. Just a traveling band of brothers. And eventually sisters. I mean, performing for the sheer love of the profession. The sheer love of the art form. Definitely not for the money. But it's not always about money. Payoff can be so many other things. As long as it's worthwhile. Not only performing, but in many ways being a family. And through the ups and downs, my friends, my family, had all returned to the thing we all cherished. My only regret is not truly enjoying it as it was happening. As often is the case when you run shows, you're thinking of the next show. You're thinking of the next segment. You're thinking of what the future is. You're not thinking of just enjoying the moment. I often tell guys now, like, just enjoy it. You never know how quickly this is all going to go away. And I know I didn't see the end in sight. We had all talked of the next few tapings and the impending Amazon deal. I was actually looking ahead to a year from that point. My idea was to elevate the show to a point where eventually other banners from other companies would come to represent and perform alongside IWE. Ultimately, my plan was to have kind of invading factions. ACW, XWO, TASW, PWA, PCW, WOW, whatever company. Like an open door policy, and work towards the next 0 hour being a best of the best. Representatives from each company, the best of their best, in this one show to end it all kind of deal, which would spawn to whatever. That would be season 2 of IWE. But 2 months after 0 hour, it would end. It would come out of nowhere, but I should have seen it. I definitely should have seen it. I should have taken the outs when I could. From that very first show to losing the bankroll to moving to a new venue to losing advertising that we really never saw, to the constant back and forth bickering, to the stress, all of it. But it was ironic timing because one of their things was they wanted a percentage, which we had just discussed giving them a percentage, and a day later they fired me. Again, probably should have told them, hey, we're gonna give you a couple bucks per DVD. A truly bitter pill to swallow, honestly. I respect all those who shared my passion, all those who wore the shirt proudly, bought a DVD. Or just were or wanted to be a part of it. All those guys and gals, especially the guys who were like, man, how can I be a part of this? Remember the submission squad calling me. At the time I knew who they were, but I knew they were a traveling bunch. They had quoted me a good price. They were willing to work for next to nothing, but it was still like, man, I don't have a guarantee. And that sucked. Turning guys down. Just turning guys down. I would have loved to have brought in everyone and been like, we're just going to work. I can truly say that it was a time I'll always remember. I'm happy anytime I work with the guys who are a part of it. We're all part of a very exclusive club. So, yeah, truly wondrous time, and it really got me in gear for the most part, got my mind working, and really provided a great distraction. And there's some great footage I can look back on and be happy with, and some quality stuff. And there's stuff on IWE out there on YouTube you can watch. And I thought we really did something. We could have done more, but I really thought we did something. Now, my next video. We'll cover another Justin Smith, Steve DeMarco co-production, mainly him doing a lot of the wonderful editing and putting the story together, but I was along for the ride and I really enjoyed it. And I'm talking about Behind the Curtain. Talk about that web series on YouTube. I gotta watch all that stuff. It's gonna be awesome. I can't wait. But appreciate all of you that took time to watch this, took your time to listen to this. I'll give you a lot more details moving forward about the upcoming section of the future of my YouTube channel and the comings and goings. But remember, June 14th, Reality Wrestling returns to Clear Lake Recreation Center for their final TV taping that will lead up to the iPay-per-view on July 26th in Humble, Texas. Go to realitywrestling.com to get more details. Now, as I always like to end these, stay cool, stay sexy, stay classy, but support any indie wrestling. And for those in the business, just enjoy the moment, because you never know when it's going to end. And finally, thanks once again. It was a hell of a ride.